Hello and welcome back to Automotive Tales. On today's episode, I need to tell you a story about a mighty little Mazda. So, as you will have seen in the gratuitous time-lapse, I am busy cleaning the car up again. It's actually about a year since I bought this car, and it's now time for me to pass it on. So, those of you that follow me on social media will be familiar with this. This is a fail sheet for the MOT. Now, I thought I'd covered most of the bases. I expected a few things that might just need sorting. But let me run you through the list of all the things it's failed on. Fog light not working. Well, actually, technically the fog light does work, but the switch in the dashboard that I replaced still doesn't stay in, so it needs a new switch. We've got stop lamp not working. That's the one that's right up on the top of here. I don't think that's actually technically a fail, but it isn't working apparently. I didn't know that. It says shock absorbers at the rear. Now, I did buy shock absorbers thinking it feels a bit soft at the back end of this car. But I couldn't see any damp when I was peering in through the wheel arches, so I thought I'd probably get away with it for this MOT, but those do need replacing. There's also note of corrosion on the rear brake lines, which I hadn't spotted. I'd had the front wheels all off and I'd done all the front and checked all the brake lines up there, and they all look really quite nice and clean. They were a bit grubby, and once I cleaned all the mud off them, actually, they were in really good condition. So I assumed the rears would be in a similar state too. Flexi lines look okay, but the hard lines appear to have some corrosion on them. Both headlight aims were out. Now, I don't know whether that's anything to do with the back end being a bit soft with the shock absorbers, or if they just need adjusting. And then we've got some corrosion fails. Now, you'll have seen in a previous video, I've been through the car with Gav, the welder, and we've done all the bits on the sills and the rear arches so that it looks pretty solid. But once they got it up properly on the lift, they had a good old poke around. And right at the very back of the car, there's some corrosion on. I think it's sort of like the chassis legs at the back that go into the boot. So not a massive job, but it means getting the car right up in the air to do those. And then it's got an exhaust leak. So the back box apparently is leaking. It seems to sound okay. So it's not a major leak, but I think that's part of the reason it's failed its emissions test as well. So it probably just needs a new exhaust, which on a car of this size and this age is probably not very expensive at all. And then there's a few other minor ones for corrosion, again, that aren't fails, but are sort of picked up. Apparently around near the rear suspension. I'm not quite sure where that is. They told me it was up in the wheel arch, but from looking inside the car, it all looks pretty solid. So it could be that's just a bit of surface rust that needs the arch liner out to address. Now, I've already sunk way too much money into this car for Festival of the Unexceptional, and I then continued to sink money into it because actually I really like this car and I've enjoyed driving it. But it's got to the point where I cannot justify putting any more money in. So you'll have seen my call out on social media a couple of days ago. Hello and welcome back to Automotive Tales. I am in the Mighty Mazda that I have been working on recently to try and get it back on the road. You'll see some links to videos in the description below. I took it for an MOT to see what else needed doing, and it didn't go very well. So I can't go in over my head again on another project. I already am on the E30 Cabriolet. I'm probably going to be on the 944, and we're moving house, which means I can't take all the projects with me. So I am putting it out to the Weird Car Twitter community. Would somebody like to take this car on? If so, I will let you have this car for £100, noting all the parts I put on it and all the work it's had so far, on 3 conditions. Condition 1, you fix it, you don't break it for parts. Condition 2, you take it to Festival of the Unexceptional. Condition 3, if you sell it on afterwards, any profit you make goes to charity. And if you do that, the £100 you pay for it will also go to a charity of your choosing. So, is anybody willing to take on the Mighty Mazda and save it from this god-awful mess? Bleep in the comments below, let me know. And we had a hit. Somebody actually wants to take on this Mighty Mazda. And that somebody is somebody you might know. It's that blonde lass off telly. It's Sarah Crabtree. She's going to take on this lovely little Mazda 121, and she has agreed to my 3 conditions, which were you don't break it for parts and sell all the Mazda bits off and make the money from that, and that you take it to Festival of the Unexceptional 2023. So hopefully we're looking forward to seeing it there, if they can get it ready in time. And should they come to sell it or auction it, that any money they make over what they pay me for it and over what they spend on it must also go to charity. And if that happens, then the £100 I've sold this car to Sarah for will also go to charity. So I've come to the end of my road with this lovely little car, and I am going to miss it greatly, despite being only a tiny little hatchback with 1.3. It's great fun to drive. It's got something that modern cars miss. It's very engaging. It's got a good little chassis. It's got a very enthusiastic little engine, and it weighs nothing. So it's great fun. But Sarah's going to take it on now and is going to see it over the finish line, get it a new MOT, and then hopefully it gets a new spin of life. So to end this video, I'm going to go through the highlights of this little Mazda. So I have done loads to it. So let's have a look back at all the things I have done with this Mazda. Time to recycle some footage, but some great little highlights with this little car. Got a Ford key. Looks like a Fiesta key. It looks a lot like a Fiesta, but it is not. It's that way up. It's a Mazda. So we've bought a Mazda 121 GXI, no less, of which there is a heady number left. There's 42 of these vehicles left, of which this is one of them. The first time I drove the car, the first thing I came across was the little thing that tells me it's a 5-speed gearbox, which came off. So that's another thing we're going to have to fix. What else did it tell you? It has an radio with a tape player, very fancy, which needs a code. So that's going to be another job to fix, is to find a code, which I presume will be a very cheap or even a free fix these days, fingers crossed, because we've got to keep the budget in mind. I have been online and I've found a code for the radio, which I've now managed to put in, which was a bit of a faff, because every time you push these buttons, it seems to affect the connection behind here, and it thinks you've popped the radio front out again and stops working. So after about 6 attempts of putting the code in, I have managed to finally, hopefully, get it to work. So here goes. Ignition on. Oh, that's not a good sign, is it? Let me start it. Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, let's see how it starts. So it was delivered last night. Look at that! On the button. Lovely sounding little thing. So that's why it's not coming on. Same problem with the buttons. But we're just going to shut that up. But we have radio. It does work. So, you get a screwdriver in there, pop these clips out, and get that swapped over. More little cool things on the Mazda. Check this out. The spoiler is actually a proper Mazda branded, not a Ford branded one. And it was made by Zender for Mazda. How cool is that? Put the new gasket on and put it back on the car. It should look nice and smart. nothing happens until you go to 4. So essentially there's a big resistor pack that goes with this. Ah, that was easy. Found it. Okay, ignition is on. Moment of truth. That will be fans. Woohoo! I mean, literally straight away that's better. Oh, so much more satisfying. And then, oh yeah. And then just as quickly, yeah. Lovely. Right, here goes. And just like that, there is no play in the bearing. Job's a good one. Due to my timing mishap, we didn't get to film the tyres going on, but look what we have. We have nice fresh rubber. So we've got a set of 4 Toyo 155 7013 75T brand spanking new tyres on the fake Fiesta. And there we have it, belt out. So I had to take this little cover off that goes over the pulley on the power steering pump. So it's 2 8mm bolts, one down by the power steering line, one right on the top that's dead easy to get to, and then 15mm spanner on the tensioner with a 14mm spanner hooked over just to give me the leverage. So now I've got to feed the new one back in following the path of this, which is going to be interesting. In time to make use of the fact I have a workshop. So as you can see, it's absolutely hoofing it down outside, but we're indoors with a ramp. Doesn't really get any better, does So I've taken the old thermostat housing off the old pipe, and you can see the build-up of coolant on that. It's clearly been sort of weeping past that for a little while. So we're going to stick that in the sink and give that a clean. The other job we're going to do while we've got the cooling system in pieces is replace this hose and replace the thermostat that sits on this block at the bottom. Right, we have one brand new radiator for the Mighty Mazda. So look how thin this tiniest little thing. So right, let's see if we can get this into the car. So, new radiator is in. First job is going to be to try and get these lower arms off. They are looking a little bit crusty. So, while the person that knows what they are actually doing is fixing that, I thought I'd show you what's going back on. So we've got a new set of Commerline lower arms to go on, because all these bushes are pretty rotten on the existing ones, and the arms are looking a bit rusty as well. Nicely chose a kit that comes with a full Febby bolt kit, which is going to be useful because I suspect these ones that go across here to clamp this onto the hub may end up being cut off. So always make sure you get a fresh bolt set when you're doing a job like this. Wheels are back on, everything is back together. The last thing we had to do was use some heat to get the bolt out that holds the ball joint on the bottom on this side, and then it's all gone back together fairly nicely. I have found the oil filter. It's above the drive shaft that goes from the gearbox out to the bearing over here on the right hand side to make them equal length. That's a bit of a horrible place to put it, Because when I undo that, you can guarantee that is going to pour oil all over that drive shaft. Let's see what mess this makes. You'll also notice I have some new spark plugs. I actually found the Mazda recommended Motorcraft Platinum new old stock spark plugs for this car. So a little bit sad, but quite excited about that. None of this fancy modern stuff. These are brand new old stock, lovely period spark plugs. I mean, they're now filthy because my hands are covered in oil, but I'll clean those up before they go in. So first job is going to be to get the coolant out of the expansion vessel. Because this sits a lot higher than the point we need to access the system, it's going to all drain out all of the engine. So I have a clever little tool for extracting it. And before you say it, no, it's not a Swedish enlarging pump of any kind.
One Swedish-made penis enlarger pump.
That's not mine.
One credit card receipt for Swedish-made penis enlarger, signed by Austin Powers.
This is a cool little laser tool for extracting the coolant. So I can basically empty the bottle and as much of the pipe I can get into with the nozzle, which means there'll be very small amounts of coolant left in here and very little to leak out. So as if by magic, I actually came prepared for this job. So it took a bit of finding, but I have purchased a new thermostat housing, which is all nice and shiny. Although there are a few burrs that need to come off the bottom of there before that goes on.
It's just built up with loads of filler and...
So it was maybe quite timely to attack this before this got a lot worse. Oh my word, that looks terrible. So first stage is in. You can see the seam up here, it's been repaired. We're now working in the arch at the back to fill the many holes. Just like that, the sun has come out, so I can show you the finished article. So we've replaced the seam underneath here, which was all very, very crusty. And then we've got a new return in here to strengthen all of that up. And obviously there's still a little bit of kind of surface corrosion on there, but this is all fairly solid. The risk was if we go too much further up, we're going to start coming all the way around here and needing a huge amount of repair, which isn't really worth it for the car. So we've got the car to a good, really nice, stable position, all nice and solid through here. So a new piece on here. Oh, stuck my hands in the stuff that's still wet, like an idiot. A new piece round in here, and all this seam sealed in, and it's tied back in to the sill under here. So a little bit of filler just to get rid of some of these little pop marks. They've all been treated. And then a little bit of paint, and it should look nice and smart. But the most important thing is, you can now go for an MOT. Nice, so that's the patch made up.
Just needs a bit more trimming.
There you go, just like that.
Needs a bit
of fettling, and then it drops straight in there. Just like that. First bit done. Bit on the driver's side then, just above the little patch down here. It's obviously starting to go. If I can get focus, there we go. Just starting to go there.
Bit will be for there. I'm just cutting this down.
It's looking really, really smart. You can just about feel the patch there. You almost can't see it. So a little bit of filler later on will smooth all that out, but it's looking really, really sharp. And then here, I mean, it looks really, really nice and solid again. It's still leaking. How is this even possible? We have a new hose. We have a new thermostat housing. How? Well, I hope you found that interesting. And yeah, that's all for this episode. I dare say I'm actually quite sad to see the back of this car. It's going to be a big hole in my life, but it probably means I'm going to have more time to do something with this, which if you've been following the channel for a while, you might know what that is. And it has, well, it's been sat there going green for a far, far too long. And sadly, it's probably going to have to go as well. So it's time for us to get that cleaned, that back on the road. So join us in a future episode as we move on to sorting out another little hatchback in our life. Bye for now. Oh yeah, and see you at Festival of the Unexceptional. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Look who's in the Mazda!